Back at the studio again. Um, More songwriting advice. People ask, what do I do? Um, do not get hung up on scales. Do not get hung up on form. Do not get hung up on genre. I probably talked about that before. But that seems to be something that sticks in everybody's craw. So, um, good way to think about this is if you think about any other job, like a lawyer, maybe not a lawyer actually, maybe a carpenter. I think a skilled trade like a carpenter, a plumber, a mechanic. Um, Most of the time, when they have to solve a problem, it's an instinctual thing they can solve with because of their training. If a plumber comes to your house and he's trying to fix a trap or he's trying to fix a water heater or something or a leak and he's looking on YouTube for videos, you know he's a crappy plumber, right? Or he's looking at a book. No, I mean, they have experience doing this job and their experience has taught them what to do when they see a problem. Songwriting is the same exact thing. It's a job that you have to train yourself how to do. Now, you can learn by copying other songwriters, people that you like, and you do that intuitively, whether you know it or not. That's just what you do. Um, so, one way to get your head out of your, get out of your own head is to try to write with no instrument. So you can either, use your voice memo to just hum a lick or rhythm or just something you're thinking. Or if you're a lyricist, just write, just free write, and then again, edit later. Don't self edit while you're doing something. You won't have anything to edit. You'll just be just wasting your time. For a long time, that's what I used to do. I would write with no instrument. I would just write what's in my head, and people learn how to do that in school. You can teach yourself how to do it anyway. Um, but I would basically write entire things on paper and then sit down and try to figure out if what I wrote is playable, because sometimes it is and sometimes it's not. Either because of the technical limitations of the instrument or because it just sounds like crap and I wrote it wrong. It just depended on what I wrote at the time, or what I was thinking. But the more that you do things like this, the more you become comfortable with how you approach it, and you could look at it later and say, "Oh, that's what I was thinking." But if you don't do this, you don't know what you were thinking, especially if it's vague. You just have no idea. You just have an unfinished thing that is not usable, probably ever, unless you can salvage it. But that's a really good way to not do the same stuff that you typically would do, because people get into ruts where they just play the same things and they don't know how to break out of it. That's a real good way, is to just not have an instrument at all. Go to the park, sit there with notation paper if you know how to write music, and read it. If you don't, take lessons, because I could do 1,000 hours on why you should do that. Probably the most important thing is to have enough language in your head and in your hands that you can write and communicate with other people. Otherwise, it's just like you might as well be speaking foreign language or making things up. That is super helpful, writing it out with no instrument, where you can just dream essentially, and you're interpreting a dream, and you're using your crazy guy, everybody's got one, to interpret a dream, and then you're using an editor later to edit it into something that is considered a song, or whatever you want it to be, a tone poem or background music to a movie, or whatever you're looking to do. You're just trying to figure it out. That's the way to do it. It's one way anyway. I mean, another way would be just grab another instrument if you have one, especially if you don't know how to play it, because if you have enough experience playing the one you do and then you grab something else, it naturally will make sense, some of it at least, and you'll naturally just find stuff you can do. I had one student for a real long time who played drums, and we just basically played drums and did music production. And he got sick and tired of using plugins for all his productions. He was using, all the stuff everybody uses. So he just started buying instruments. So his whole house was full of he had a saxophone, and he had a trumpet, and he had a guitar, he had a bass, he had a ukulele, he had a mandolin. It started to look like my office, honestly. And he would make recordings, and all of his recordings were him playing stuff. He just refused to use plugins anymore. And he could barely play anything but drums. And he had 3 microphones. So his drum recordings sounded unique because it was just a kick drum, a snare, and an overhead in a bedroom, basically. And then all his instruments sounded wacky because he could only play 3 or 4 notes on a flute or whatever. And then he would manipulate them production-wise, and it just sounded like this weird, wild thing that nobody else could come up with. So that was his way around it. But his problem of songwriting was similar but different in that he got sick and tired of using plugins. He got tired of using Serum. He got tired of using everything Native Instruments made. Because he had the wherewithal. He could buy it if he wanted to. So he just got sick of it. He didn't like it. He didn't like the fact that all the sounds sounded like just your basic EDM crap, just the same thing. So he wanted to go deeper. So he started buying modular synths. That's how he started, to buy the most complicated thing and then try to figure it out. But he bought modular synths. He started farting around with modular synths, and then he bought a Moog Sub Fatty or something like that. He bought some kind of Moog little synth, and then he was hooked forever, and he just started buying up all the stuff he could to make weird recordings. And he ended up getting into NYU, I believe. And his all he had to do was send him what he was working on, because he had already put albums out on Bandcamp and on Spotify, and he was like a high school kid, So he really just took off. It was great to watch. I mean, but yeah, his recordings sounded like LSD trips. That was super weird, because he would do all the EDM techniques that we learned, that I taught him, and he learned on his own. But he would use that for real instruments that he recorded. So he had a saxophone line, and it was recorded backwards, and all the choppy stuff that he liked when he was doing dubstep production. And he would apply all that brain power to orchestral music, almost. Probably more I don't know what you would call it. Yeah, it just sounded like an orchestra on drugs. It was awesome, though. It was pretty cool, but very very weird. So that was his solution. But most of that was him being okay with it being totally weird, and maybe everybody might think that he's nuts. That was his way around. He was just screw it, I'm going to do this. I think it sounds cool. I personally thought it sounded cool too, because I got tired and burned out on EDM very quickly because of how just redundant it is, how easy it is to put together, at least in the initial ways. So that's a good example. He didn't write using just a notepad, but he wrote using more of his intuitive mind than a music theory mind, because he was just pulling stuff off the wall and just going for it, and would come up with weird stuff, not really knowing what it is or what notes they are, and then recording it, and then fashioning it into something later. But man, did he had so many songs finished, because he was just this one's done, this one's done. It was like a factory. He could get 3 or 4 songs done and recorded in a week. And I watch people struggle forever to finish one song. It's just so he's probably done 1,000 songs since then. I don't know, but I should probably go see what he's doing now. Yeah, but yeah, that's more advice.